Alright, this is my second part of the Sunless Sea Let's Play. I'm just going to start off the game by choosing... I'll choose a past. You can choose, not to pick a past, and that does actually have its advantages, but they're not huge, and really for the purpose of this, it doesn't matter. So, who am I in this game? This game really kind of... a lot of what you get out of the game is what you put into it. So, the first time I played it, I really didn't care much about the role playing. I didn't care about all the story and stuff. And as a result, I found the game itself to be lackluster. But once I started reading the flavor text and everything and stopped focusing just on numbers and more about learning, it became harder, but also became a lot more interesting. And I think that's where this game's greatest skill is, the writing. So in this case, just because pages, which is how fast you convert fragments to secrets, as I said last video, is really one of the hardest things to actually increase, and B, one of the most valuable things in the game. I will pick a poet for my first one. There's always great benefits to each one of these, except for hearts, which will hearts never really will find its potential in this game. You can go for hearts, but you probably shouldn't unless you want to have a very bad time. Mirrors is also a great one, or if you really, really just want to, if this is your second or third time, because even though this game is built around permadeath, some things can carry over to your successors. Obviously, this is a new game for me, so nothing carries over, but Veils is also another very, very useful one, because a lot of this game is trying not to be seen, especially early game. Later on, you get a good weapon and stuff, you can go fight, but until then, it is tough. So, I'm going to pick a poet. Educated and articulate, you seek sensation at sea. How lucky you have a legacy to spend. Your long-vanished father has a rich patron. Not very rich, because you got 70 echo to your name. That's like nothing in this game. That can buy a couple of barrels of fuel, some supplies, and maybe a cherry if you're lucky. Yes, a cherry. A wise soul. So I'm also getting my first crew member, the sly navigator, first officer. Competent? Probably. Trustworthy? Possibly. He, as you can see, increases my mirrors by 1, which is right here. And that's just like a passive thing. As long as he's equipped, he will do that. I also immediately get a plus 25 increase to my pages stat, which is seriously helpful. That number before was 288 to gain a secret. Now it's at 275 to gain a secret. That's a huge difference in the long run. Actually, so yeah. So we got a navigator. We got 20 echo more, which is sucky, but it's what we have. And I got 25 new pages, slide navigator, and also a new quest sort of thing. Someone in London requires your services. Someone is looking for passage. The other thing is that if you mouse over the text or the little boxes a lot of the time, it'll give you a little flavor text. Like sometimes it's the same as other things. Like in this case, the slide navigator is the same down here as is up there. Other times it might give you a little bit more interesting stuff. Like no one was born to be a Zee-Captain. No one was born a Zee-Captain. That makes a lot of sense. Being a Zee-Captain, it just sort of tells you in this world, being a Zee-Captain isn't something that comes easy, and it's not usually something you choose to do. It's usually something that's thrust upon you. So this is kind of an interesting, kind of weird part of the game, which is it basically lets you decide how you want to beat it. Now, obviously, the other way to beat the game is to die and lose and then restart, but you can get some benefits from beating the game with these sort of things. I'm just going to choose Your Father's Bones, because that's probably going to be the one that gives us the most interesting experience. Actually, you know what? Yeah, sure, why the hell not? Your father was lost at sea, you never knew him, but you've often dreamt of him. Find and return his remains to London for a decent burial. And the other ones are also good. This is one that's actually linked to Submarine, the expansion pack. The other ones are, like this one, Fulfillment is really, really hard, and it gives you a Song of the Sea, which is insanely hard to... You have to basically get really high stats and everything. Plus, you have to gather a bunch of really hard to find materials. Wealth is possibly the easiest and the most straightforward. Get a bunch of money, get a mansion, family, the works, and that's it. This one is incredibly difficult, but it leads you all over the place. And since I think I know my way in and out of the game, I'll pick this one. When you find your father's bones, you can retire in victory. So, I now have an ambition. Find my father's bones and then retire. This is going to be very interesting. So, now this is kind of another thing, a staple of Fail Better. I actually like the way they did it in Fallen London better, where it says you can choose sir, madam, or basically a long-winded spiel that is talking about how there are people who walk around here with squid faces, and you really think that gender is that important? Good day. I always like to do captain. I don't know why. Just I think it's noble. Yes, I like this last piece of advice. Explore, take chances. This captain will probably die. It is very true. Yeah, how do they speak to you? Who am I? Let's find out. I'm going to name myself, Jesus. Sure. I'm going to be baby Jesus. And that will be my first captain. Sure, I'll pick the default face as well. Actually, no. I'll pick this face. This is our Jesus. It started. So, now we have a lead in our father's bones. Sometimes this is pretty standard for the start of the game, but let's see. Editor of the Unexpurged London Gazette. Unexpurged since 19, yeah. He's published your poetry from time to time. That's actually interesting. I never noticed that they tie in the fact that you were a poet. I don't know if that's the case for all the other things, but if it is, then that's interesting. Yeah, it looks like it is. So, this guy, this is kind of tough. I'm deciding whether or not I actually want to read through all of these different things with you guys. I'll leave it up on the screen for a little while, and I'll read some of the more interesting things, but for the most part, a lot of the reading is very much like, if you want to do it, then do it. If you don't, then why bother? Let's see. So, for example... Yeah, he turned that pound to love poetry. Okay, so interesting. So it seems like your father was a poet, and the Masters of the Bazaar took an interest in your father. The Bazaar is, again, this is something that I was so confused about because I'd never played Fallen London, but the Bazaar is, it's not a bazaar, a traditional bazaar, which is basically just a place, like a center for shops and stuff, like a market, an open air market. The bazaar is more like an entity in this game, and the masters of the bazaar are like its figureheads. So, I need to bring him a Z story, a tale of terror, and a memory of distant shores. These are actually incredibly easy, and considering that it used to be the first time I played this, this must be a more recent edition, because the first time I played, I had to find 5 musker salt, it's called, which basically means you get 5 musker salt. 1 musker salt is just an item, it doesn't really matter, but one of those is worth, I believe, 3 or 5, I think it was 5 Z stories, which aren't easy to get. They're not hard, but they're not easy either. And so you had to get 5 of those, which means you had to get 25 Z stories in the early part of the game. It was impossible. So, next, Submarine is obviously expansion. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to leave this off here, and I'll start this on my next video. Alright? I'll start pick my way around the Z.